This is a Sony Bravia KLV-46W400A LCD TV. The problem is there's no picture. When we turn on the screen, you can see that the power lights up. The backlight does turn on. If you look at the back here, you can see the light bleeding through the holes from the back. So that tells me that the backlight itself is probably good, the inverter board is good, and the power supply is probably good. We're going to continue to try to diagnose this. This is what the back of the TV looks like with the cover off. This is your inverter board, your T-con board, power supply board, and the main board. Because the LCD backlight did come on when we powered on the TV, I'm going to assume that the inverter board and the power supply board are good. It's a pretty good assumption, but to do due diligence, you should still check the voltages coming out from some of these connectors. They are labeled here what the voltages should be, so that gives you a good reference. You can check the voltages with the power or with the cable plugged in but off to make sure you have standby voltage, and when you power it on, you should get the full voltage on the pins. You should also inspect all the various capacitors, make sure they're not bulging or anything like that. With the main board, what you can look for is, a lot of times with the TVs, some of these chips use a BGA reflow process with lead-free solder. So what happens is that over time the solder cracks and you can reflow it. But in this case, these don't look like those sort of chips. The way you can tell is you can see these pins coming out from the chip. With a BGA chip, they use a ball grid array where the solder points are underneath the chip. So that's probably not an issue with this board. To do our due diligence, you can always take apart all these boards and inspect for cracked solder on the back side, especially under any high heat areas, like under this heat sink. There is a processor chip, so you can inspect that visually. After doing all our checks, I'm leaning towards a bad T-con board, so I'm going to show you how to check this. With this T-con board, I've removed the cover and I have my multimeter hooked up. I've got my ground lead connected to the chassis, and then I'm using these needle probes to test the various points. What you're going to do is you're going to power on the TV, and you'll see some of these points where you can test them. It's located throughout the entire board. If you look closely, some of them are labeled with the voltages. I don't have a service manual for this TV, so I'm just kind of gonna wing it. For example, some of these points are labeled with the voltage that you should expect. So I'm just gonna comb through this entire board and test the points that show a voltage to see what it looks like. Another important thing is try to find the VGMA test pins. So on this board, it's located on the top right here. We have 18 VGMA pins. This is going to be your gamma. So you're going to test the voltage on all these pins to see what you get. And there should be some voltage on those pins. So I'm done testing the voltages on this T-con board. The suspicious thing I found is with these VGMA pins, I got a full 15 volts on pins 1 to 9, but from 10 to 18 I got 0 volts. So there's probably something wrong with this T-con board. I will replace this T-con board and see what happens.